You spent a long time to negotiate a deal, but what happens when that deal nears its end? Will it continue or suddenly end? Understanding how contract extensions work can save you from scrambling to renegotiate, or worse, starting all over again. I'm Mike, founder of Starlit Contracts. We're here to help you negotiate and use contracts with confidence. And in this video, we're looking at the contract duration and extensions. To summarize, a contract's duration is the initial term of the contract plus any extensions to it. And how does it work? You can extend a contract in several ways. It can be by agreement between the parties, it can be automatic, or it can be at one party's discretion. If you have an extension by agreement between the parties, it means that the parties will need to come together before the end of the initial term of the contract and decide if they want to extend. If they do, then their decision will often be formalized in a written document. This is different from when a contract extends automatically, which can be easier to manage and can avoid the need for a contract amendment. The parties might state in the contract that at the end of the initial term, the contract will extend automatically, unless one party notifies the other differently before the initial term ends. The last option is to have a unilateral extension of the contract, where one of the parties decide whether to extend the contract or not. For example, the parties might agree in the contract that the customer can elect to extend by periods of 6 months, and if they do, then the supplier is bound to the contract. Is this something that you should care about? It depends. Do you prefer having the security of a longer-term contract, or do you prefer the flexibility of a shorter one? Whatever option is right for your deal, keep in mind that it's generally easier to extend an existing contract than to enter into a new one. Let's look at a practical example together. Cost Saving Customer Limited and New Product Supplier Limited sign a contract for the supply of a new product that is expected to save customer money. The contract has an initial duration of 6 months, with the option to extend by 1-year increments. What can go right for the customer in this situation? Well, it might be that over the course of the initial 6-month contract duration, the customer finds they have not made the saving that they expected. The customer decides that they will not extend the contract, despite the supplier wanting to, and the contract ends. The two parties walk away from the deal amicably. But what could go wrong for the customer in this situation? Well, let's say the opposite is true and the customer has saved a huge amount of money due to supplier's innovative product. In this situation, the customer wants to extend the contract by a year and to lock the supplier into the same price. Unfortunately for the customer, the contractual position is that the parties must agree to extend the contract. Seeing how much they have saved the customer, the supplier might insist on an increase to their payment in order to extend the contract. If the customer is not willing to pay more, then the supplier may allow the contract to end so that they can focus on other customers who are willing to pay more for their product. Let's look at a sample clause and some key considerations now. This contract has an initial duration of 6 months from the contract date, or, if you're using the definition, you might refer to the effective date of the contract instead. In option 1, the contract may be extended by written agreement between the parties, so this means that before the end of that 6-month period, the parties must come together and decide if they want to extend the contract, and if they do, then it's good practice to record that agreement in writing. In option 2, the contract will extend by 1-year increments unless a party notifies the other not later than 6 weeks before the end of the relevant contract period. This option provides an automatic extension of the contract, which makes the administration of the contract easier. If the parties decide that everything's going well, then this option means that they don't need to do anything for the contract to extend. If, on the other hand, one or both parties do not want to extend the contract, then they must communicate that decision to the other party, not later than 6 weeks before the end of the relevant contract period. If they miss the deadline, then they could be locked into the contract for another year. In option 3, customer may extend the contract by 1-year increments upon notification to supplier, not later than 6 weeks before the end of the initial duration or of any extension. The initial duration plus any extension shall not exceed 3 years from the contract date or the effective date, whichever you choose. This option 3 gives the customer the right to decide whether to extend the contract. This means that the customer maintains maximum control and the supplier commits to any extension of the contract up to a maximum contract duration of 3 years. This maximum period is a safety mechanism for the supplier, which makes sure they're not locked into a deal for more than 3 years if, for example, the deal changes from being profitable to unprofitable. To wrap up with your key takeaways, make sure that the initial term for your deal and extension periods and the ultimate end date are clear in your contract. Determine what extension methodology is best for your deal, whether that be an extension by agreement between the parties, automatic extensions, or if one party decides at their discretion. I hope you find this content helpful. If you're ready to speak with an expert or to hire a lawyer, then check out starlitcontracts.com, where we will help you to retain a lawyer or law firm to address your requirements. I look forward to seeing you there.